Hello, and thank you for downloading this latest Data Science Central podcast. This is Bill Voorhees, your host. I'm the editorial director with Data Science Central and also chief data scientist for Data Magnum. Today's podcast is sponsored by Tibco. We very much appreciate Tibco's support of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. This podcast will be about 15 minutes long, and we have one speaker who I'll introduce in just a minute. Today's talk is entitled The Algorithm Economy, and our speaker is Shawn Rogers, who is the Senior Director of Analytics Strategy at Tibco. Now, Shawn's an internationally recognized thought leader, speaker, author, and instructor on the topics of analytics, the cloud, IoT, big data, data warehousing, and social analytics. His latest book, Analytics: How to Win with Intelligence, was published in 2017. So, Shawn, thanks for being with us today. I understand you're going to expand on this theme that you've been developing recently about how central data analytics and predictive algorithms have become for companies of all sizes who want to compete and win in today's economy. There's this odd dichotomy that becoming more connected, which you would think would be unifying, is actually the force that's disrupting the traditional economy and setting the stage for this new digital economy. Why don't you share with us some of your thoughts on this new algorithm economy?
Well, thanks. It's great to be here, and it's a great way to enter into this conversation. I think we're definitely undergoing some disruption and certainly some shift in our focus as companies are looking for better ways to be competitive and to differentiate. And I think the smartest companies are doing it with the investment that they've already made in big data, and they're looking to get a return on investment from that. And where they're looking, which I find very exciting, is in the world of analytics and algorithms, and they're looking to get insight from the data that they've invested in, but more importantly, they're looking to take action. And I think that this is a technical thing, but it's also at the same time, it's a cultural thing. And I think companies that are addressing the culture of being able to use data and create action points and also rely upon the technology that brings them there, these are the companies that see promise in the algorithm economy and are differentiating themselves competitively at that level.
Well, Shawn, thanks. Can you explain for our audience a little bit more about specifically what the algorithm economy is and how it's different from the traditional or digital economy?
Sure, yeah. I saw this great quote recently from, and actually I have two of them. The first one from Gartner talks about the fact that data is inherently dumb, and it doesn't actually do anything unless you know how to use it and how to act on it. And because algorithms are where the real value lies, that's kind of how we're defining the way things are going forward. And I think Gartner was pretty spot on in recognizing that lots of activities have gone on around collecting data, harvesting data, and putting data into our overall enterprise ecosystem, but there's been a lot of trouble, I think, for companies trying to figure out the best path to leveraging it. And at the same time, I think we see this growing trend, and again, Gartner's done a good job of looking at this, and they feel that by 2020, 75% of all large and mid-sized organizations will compete using advanced analytics, but maybe more importantly, proprietary algorithms. And that's where new intellectual property and competitiveness is going to be drawn from, and I think that that's the foundation for an algorithm economy. It's when companies turn their attention to utilizing the information they have in a competitive way, and I think that there's quite a few companies that are doing that in unique and interesting ways.
So certainly competitiveness is one of the issues that's making this a hot topic now. Are there other things that are supposed to be catching our attention, and how far back do you trace this emergence of the algorithm economy?
Well, I think experts in our industry started calling out economies, a handful of years ago. I remember back in the mid-'90s that Don Tapscott wrote this great book on the digital economy. And what Don was looking at that point was how data and connectedness, the internet and so on, was going to spur on this disruption. And I think on the heels of that, as companies got their traction around this type of technology and approach to information, then we kind of fell into this this big data economy. And the big data economy has been very interesting, and it's certainly garnered an awful lot of press and attention over the last decade and a half. And certainly lots of money has been invested in new solutions to help enterprise customers get their hands on basically all of their data. And that's really the tipping point, is having almost all of your data at your fingertips then brings you to the next point of, hey, what am I going to do with it, and how am I going to go about doing that? And I think that that's a challenge that companies are addressing today. And as I mentioned, both from a technological standpoint, but also from a cultural standpoint, I think an algorithm-first thinking is something that we're starting to see, or certainly an analytics-first thought when people are looking at and scoping out projects. They want to know, what can I learn from this, and what actions can we take to help ourselves either, as I said, be more competitive, move quicker, save money, all of those types of things that relate to return on the investment that companies have made over the last couple of decades.
Shawn, I certainly like the idea of algorithm first or analytics first in a company. Maybe you could give us an example of one or two companies that you're aware of that are particularly advanced, and give us some examples of how they're dealing with this.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of different ways to approach this new opportunity. Some companies are literally buying their way in, and if you look at companies like John Deere back in September of this year, they just made a very large acquisition, around $300 million, of a company called Blue River Technology. And this startup develops tractor-towed robots so that you can actually analyze crops and apply fertilizer on a plant-by-plant basis. And to me, that's pretty exciting data. It's pretty exciting connectivity. I think it's a great way for a company to literally invest their way into this arena. And then you see other companies. One that comes to mind, I like this company, Big Belly Garbage, or trash cans. And they've taken a commoditized industry of, holding trash in a bucket and having it removed to a whole new level. And if you bump into one of these trash cans around a major city, and that's becoming more and more likely. I was just in San Diego this week and saw them along the waterfront, and these trash cans are sensor driven. They're solar powered. They have a trash compactor inside of them that uses the sensors and insight to determine when they should compact the trash. They're able to hold 5 times more trash in a Big Belly garbage can than you can use in a normal one. But more importantly, they have a wireless communication system built in, and they're feeding all of this information to a central dashboard for a city or a company to utilize to better manage and maintain some competitive advantage in an industry that's probably not the first one that comes to mind for algorithms and data. But if you can instrument a trash can and help a city save hundreds of thousands of dollars per year by optimizing how these trash cans are collected and having the system actually dictate for the city where and how to go about collecting the trash, that's what an algorithm economy company is all about. They've embedded data, sensors, insight, and analytics into trash cans to do a better job and to set themselves apart from companies that haven't gotten there yet. And I think that those are the types of examples of companies that are doing really interesting things around data and insight and action. And if a trash can company and a company like John Deere can figure a way to find a path to that type of innovation, I think it swings the door open for all of us.
I love the second example. That's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm trying to understand, are there 2 or 3 or 4 major themes that would identify a company as being a member of the algorithmic economy or striving to get there, and what would they be?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a few. I don't think this is the list in totality. I'm sure there's other ways to look at it, but I like to look at companies that are embedding and enhancing analytics and data with existing services and products. So Big Belly is a great example of that. Here they had what was kind of a low-tech product, and they took an approach to it where they utilized the technology and they applied a kind of a whole new culture to this type of business. And so I urge companies, and we talk to companies quite often about, is there a way to embed analytics or to utilize data but to enhance your service or your product? And I think companies that are going down that road are winning in the algorithm algorithm economy. I also think that, and I've seen some great examples of companies literally using their existing data assets within their organization to spur brand new products and or brand new lines of business. I recently saw a telco company, a customer of ours, as a matter of fact, in Europe, and they're using cell phone data to create risk models so that they can offer microloans and lending to their customers via their mobile devices. And so they didn't have risk models on these clients and customers in advance of wanting to go into this area, so they utilized advanced analytics and the data that they had at their hands to go ahead and create a whole new line of business. And I think that that's one of the ultimate examples of an algorithmically driven economy company. And then lastly, I think as everybody's getting more sophisticated and are running a little faster with analytics in general, I'm feeling kind of bad for our data science friends. They're pretty stressed out right now. They've gone from being that quiet, super intelligent person down the hallway that had this great business insight to, having a queue, a line right in front of their door of people pounding on it saying, hey, I want better insight into customer service or HR or manufacturing or what have you. And I think our data science friends, and perhaps yourself, Bill, are feeling a little of that stress. And so I think companies that are figuring out how to scale their data science teams or data scientists are also those that are kind of moving in the right direction. Instead of being ad hoc about their approach, they're putting systems in place. Analytic centers of excellence are becoming very popular with companies that are involved in the algorithm economy, and then allowing their data scientists to really reach out beyond the walls of the business and to use algorithmic marketplaces to help them innovate quicker and to draw upon the community that's growing around analytics. So, those are a couple, but I'm sure people that are listening would probably add to that list, but I think those are three great places to look.
Oh, thanks for that clarification. Yeah, as a data scientist, boy, we are happy on the one hand, to be asked to participate, but that whole issue of efficiency and effectiveness of our time has become a greater and greater issue. While we really embrace and hope that everyone joins the algorithm economy, is there a downside? Is there something that companies have to watch out for?
Yeah, if I had a cautionary note, and I like to tell some of these stories when I get a chance to talk about this topic, well, I'm a huge fan of companies embracing their data, embracing analytics, and doing creative things with it. I do think that it's possible because of the power of analytics today for us to get carried away. And I often sort of, brand this part of my conversation on this topic of just because you can doesn't always mean you should. And over-innovating or getting a little too excited about, oh my goodness, look, if we take these 10 data points and bring them together and apply this model, we'll create or derive data from this information. And I think companies need to be careful about their culture, and they need to be careful about automating their approach to this. You're probably familiar, Bill, with that funny story about the $23.5 million book on Amazon a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It was called The Making of a Fly, right? It wasn't a very popular book. It was priced around $70, but a couple of resellers who were using automatic pricing optimization algorithms were hopscotching each other. So one price would change in the morning, the afternoon, the other team would raise the price. And lo and behold, over the course of time, the book actually was listed on Amazon at $23.5 million. So the good news is only 2 copies were sold, and I'm joking. Nobody got hurt, right? But it was a good lesson in making sure that you have some governance and control and redundancies in place when you want to do this type of creative stuff, and you need to know where the line is for your company so that you don't over-innovate and find yourself in an uncomfortable position.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Shawn, just briefly, do you want to offer some guidance on how companies begin the journey of transforming themselves into an algorithm economy type company?
Yeah, it's one is don't be afraid. Start simple, rinse and repeat, and rinse and repeat. And I find companies that take an iterative approach to this that's smaller tend to be more successful. I think it's important to do your analytics near your data today. I think the traditional ETLing of data across wide networks is getting harder and harder to do with the gravity of our data, the size of it. And so you have to be able to be flexible with where you take it. And then maybe the last bit of advice I'd provide is, hey, model life management is becoming a really critical thing, and you need to empower your data science teams with tools to govern, optimize, and control and manage the models that you have in your environment.
Well, Shawn, thanks. That was a very interesting and fun discussion. And I'd like to thank Tibco again for sponsoring today's DSC podcast, and particularly our speaker, Shawn Rogers, for his insight into today's topic. This is Bill Voorhees. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's discussion. I look forward to seeing you all again on DSC's next podcast. Have a great day.